Well, it's the unknown mechanic back again with my squeaky stool. And this channel is for the shop owner who has technicians that aren't up to par and always asking stupid questions every 5 minutes. It's also for the aspiring mechanic who wants to raise their level of proficiency so they don't have to ask their boss stupid questions every 5 minutes. It's also for the do-it-yourselfer homeowner who may want to learn how to do this with the right parts, techniques, and tools on your own, or at least educate yourself so that when you do go into the shop, you know what to expect in the way of a proper repair. And so today we are working on an Echo single-sided professional hedge trimmer. It's a model HCS-3810, and it's quite expensive, so a lot of dollars can be spent repairing it. And it belongs to, it's my worst customer, Bert Toadberger. And I've kicked that guy out of the shop so many times, and he keeps coming back. I can't get rid of him. And it says repair as needed. So what I got is a blade assembly wrapped up in duct tape, a bag full of nuts and bolts, a leaf sweep, a handle, and a motor. And that's the way I got it. So I have already cleaned the blade assembly and the hardware at the leaf sweep and the handle in my ADF glove box aqueous pressure washer. It's got heated water, very hot, with a liquid detergent, and it sprays at, the gun sprays 500 psi, and it cleaned all this stuff up in about 5 minutes. So now I'm just starting to look at things and evaluate them, and what I see here is the lower blade is brand new. And I think Bert bought a lower blade over the counter, and he intended to try to replace it on his own. He took it apart, and then he couldn't figure out how to put it back together. And so he brought it in a basket, and that's why we call him Basket Case Bert. So now I've got to fix it. So probably what happened was on a commercial single-sided trimmer, usually when a tooth breaks off, it will break one blade, not both, and it's from hitting wire fencing or cabling. Usually the blade will break before the gears or the connecting rod in the gearbox. And when that happens, you have to inspect the other blade for damage, and you want to replace it if it's bent or severely damaged in any way. If it's okay and it's dull, you can resharpen it and reuse it. Now Bert, he didn't try to sharpen the other blade. He was going to put it back together with one new blade and one dull blade. And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sharpen this blade. Now I'm going to bring the camera in for a close-up, and you can see what a dull blade looks like. Now this rounded area, that's what you have to grind off. It has to be sharp like that. And if you do that properly, the blade is as good as new. So I'm going to be shutting the camera off in just a moment and moving it over to the grinder when I get to that point. But I do want to point out a couple other things here. I've had a lot of crappy mechanics work for me. You know, we had Secret Agent Man, and he was pretty good. Then we had the Big Asset. He wasn't that great. Then we had Gomers and Sniffles and Dingus and Speedy and Einstein and Scratch. And Scratch came to us when he was semi-retired, and he supposedly had 40 years of experience. And he was convinced that these blades could be easily sharpened in a Frankenstein table saw. You get a used table saw, remove the blade, put a grinding wheel on there, and you could put the blade up on that table and accurately grind the teeth. And so, you know, he set us up with that, found a used saw, and we tried it out. One of my better mechanics tried it, and it just, all it did was burn the teeth. It just didn't work. It was slow, and it burned the teeth, and it was not what Scratch claimed it would be. So that's not the method that I use. You'll see in a moment how I'm going to do it. You're also going to see another method that I don't approve of doing. A lot of people, you know, if you're a tailgate shade tree mechanic, they like to use an angle grinder. And if you look at this carefully, I'm going to flip this blade, the used blade, over and bring in again for a close-up. Let's see if we get some light. Let's see if a good example. This has been sharpened before, and the reason why I can tell is that the blade spring has got grinder marks in it. There's one there. There's one there. There's one there. One there. One there. One there. One there. So you see, somebody has already, you know, sharpened this with a handheld angle grinder, and that produces pretty poor results. Not very accurate, quick and dirty. That's what a tailgate mechanic would do, and that's not the way we sharpen hedge trimmers. The other thing that I can see wrong with these parts is the backup bar is bent. It's bent right there. And I'm going to straighten it, and also one of the blade springs is bent. It's got a bend right there. And I'm going to straighten that too. And if I'm unable to straighten them, I'm going to replace them. You know, all my shitty mechanics wouldn't even catch that. They would just sharpen it, slap it back together, and send it out with a bent backup bar. So you have to inspect this stuff. And so that's my plan of attack. I'm going to shut the camera off, and I'm going to move over to the grinder. Okay, we're going to do some hedge trimmer blade sharpening. Okay, we're back on the bench, and I've done 25% of the job. This is a single-sided hedge trimmer, so it's easier than a double, half the grinding. And I've only ground so far one side of each tooth, and that was 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So if you multiply that by 4, you're going to get 14 minutes to sharpen both blades, excluding the tip. Now in this case, I'm not grinding a new blade, so I'm actually halfway done, 50% done, not 25% done. So I'm going to bring you in for a close-up and see the finished results, at least half of the finished results. Okay. Okay. Now the service manual, it describes the double-sided being ground to a slightly duller angle. This drawing is deceptive. The 43 degrees is not the cutting edge, it's the top angle. So the actual cutting edge would be 47 degrees, and the single-sided hedge trimmers are 45 degrees. And what's interesting is the lead-in on the top of the tooth is much steeper on the singles. It's a 60 degree. Again, this drawing is deceptive. It's showing the angle on the top, whereas the cutting angle would be, I guess it would be 55 degrees, not 60 degrees. So, also, they do recommend taking a stone and taking the burrs off the back of the blade when you're done. I'm going to do that. So those are the official angles. Also, the teeth, they slope 10 degrees on either side for a 20-degree angle on the tooth. And, you know, I've never actually measured mine with a protractor to see how accurate I am, but it's damn better than what somebody could do with a handheld grinder. So the next step is, I'm not going to make you watch me grind the other side. That's just 3.5 minutes of wasted video. You saw how it was done. I'm going to do that, and then we're going to do the end of the teeth, and I'll bring the camera back for that. That's a different grinder. Okay, I'm preparing to grind the ends of each tooth. This is done on the lawnmower blade grinder. Does an excellent job. Just can't remove a lot. I'm going to have to take multiple passes because just a light touch and you can burn the teeth. Okay, we're back in the shop on the bench after the grinding process. Ground up one side 3.5 minutes, ground the other side 3.5 minutes, and ground the tips 3.5 minutes. That's 10.5 minutes per blade, or 21 minutes per set. And keep in mind, this is the 38-inch one. This is the longest one. So that's pretty good time. And I'm going to bring you in for a close-up so you can see the results. Yeah, pretty good. So the next step is you flip the blade over, and this is not necessary in the new one, but I'm going to get some light honing oil and a stone, and I'm going to take the burrs off the back of the blade. That'll just take a couple minutes. So I'm going to pause the camera, and when I'm ready to assemble, we're going to sort out all the hardware. Okay, I have honed the burrs off of the back of the upper blade, and that extra step does help. Also, most people don't even bother to grind the tips. That also greatly helps the hedge trimmer feed into the hedge. You don't have to force feed it into the hedge. It's aggressive and it's just going to go in and cut. So we're going to start assembling here. I've sorted out the hardware, and I'm going to point out a few of the pitfalls that a lot of mechanics make. One of the ones you wouldn't want to do is assemble. When the gearbox is upside down, you can get yourself flipped over, and you can put the cutters on the wrong way, and then the handles will be all backwards, and the machine will be real dangerous. The handles are supposed to be on the right side of the bar, and the teeth on the left side, and you hold it that way and cut. But if you get mixed up and you put it on backwards, you're just going to have to take it back off and start all over again. So you got to be careful about that. We're going to start by putting one of the springs on the backup bar, and I have straightened the backup bar and the lower spring. They're straight as an arrow, and good to go. Next would be the upper blade. And then the lower blade, this is the new one. And then you start putting the spacers in. And one thing I want to point out about these spacers is that the HT-2510, the spacers and the blades are thinner than all the other models. So this part number here is actually thinner than all of the other Shindaiwa and Echo hedge trimmers. Okay, this is a 4.7 millimeter shim. And this is a 4.96 millimeter shim. So these models use the thicker shim. I had a mechanic, a dingus one time. He was putting together one of these machines, and he just is too lazy to look up parts, and he just went to the bin and pulled the shim out and he put one of the thin shims in the newer model, and when he tightened up the bolts, he bolted the blades together, and then he wondered why it wouldn't run. The motor would run and the clutch would slip, and the blades wouldn't move. So you can't be lazy and take shortcuts and just slap any old parts in there. You got to be the right ones. And it doesn't matter whether you bolt the backup bar into the machine and you assemble on the machine, or you can build the cutter assembly on your bench and then put the cutter assembly into the gearbox and tighten it up. I usually do it the other way. The bench method, I'm doing it for the camera. It's a little easier to see what's going on. We have two eye plates. The long eye plate goes on the bottom and supports the backup bar in the high stress area between the gearbox and the handle. The short eye plate goes up on the top, and that's put on after the blade assembly is put in the gearbox. And this last spacer goes in the very, very end. It's a different shape. It's got a bumper guard, so the blades won't hammer the ground when you're pointing the hedge trimmer down and cutting close to a curb or something. And there are also two different thicknesses on that shim as well. The one for the HT2510 and the DH2510 is thinner, just like the blades are thinner. Then the screws, you got to sort all the screws out. So there's 16 millimeter, 25 millimeter, and 30 millimeter. The 30s go for the handle, okay, and the 25 millimeters go for the leaf sweep. And so I'm going to be putting the 25 millimeter, the longer ones, here in these spots. Make sure that you get the screws through the spacers. And then the longest ones, the 30 millimeters, they go here where the handle goes. Okay, now the very thin 5 millimeter nuts go on. your cutter assembly pretty much assembled. I'm going to switch to a speed gun here. Making sure that the nuts are dropping down into the slot. Not 100% tight yet. You know, just making sure that my long bolts, my 25 millimeter bolts, are where the leaf sweep location is. Yes, they are. Okay, so the next thing is a washer goes on each one of the 25 millimeters, and it looks like I'm missing one of the washers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, there's only 4 washers here. So I'm going to have to pause the camera and go pull one of those washers out of stock. And then we're going to finish assembly. Okay, I'm back with some parts. I decided to replace one of the handle mounting 5x30 screws because my T27 won't go into that socket there. So that's going to strip. So replace that. That's better. And then I've got some of the correct washers. Get them out. And a lot of mechanics will just default to using a high-powered gun, and and you can stretch these screws, and you can strip these 5 millimeter nuts. They're thinner than normal, so I like to tighten by hand. Probably should be wearing gloves for this because these are sharp. And this very last one has the special anti-knock guard spacer. To put on the leaf sweep in the handle. So maybe one more washer. Goes there. Okay, and the long stud goes towards the front. You've got to remember to put the eye plate on. Let's see. Okay, the eye plate goes on this side. So I am going to have to back this one out. Okay. All right, so I want to make the video shorter, so I'm going to do the tightening of the nuts and bolts and stuff to shorten the video, and when I get ready to drop this in the gearbox, we're going to come back. I've got the whole cutter assembly assembled correctly, just some of the nuts are not tight. And I want to open that up and see what Bert did inside that gearbox. Could be a disaster. Okay, I've got the gearbox open, and I think before I put it back together, I am going to degrease this. And it looks to me like he's been putting white grease in here. What's supposed to go in there is red armor, and it's red. And I noticed that one of the rubber plugs for the gearbox greasing is missing. So he's been forcing the wrong grease in there, and it hasn't been done for a long time. And basically the grease has turned into mud. So I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning. If I don't do it, these roller bearings will fail. They haven't failed yet, but they're about to if it's not addressed. Another bearing that goes bad a lot is the needle bearing down in here. That bearing fails all the time. You've got to really watch that one. You put high hours on these things and you don't grease them, this whole thing will start to come apart, and then you've got to do a lot of gear and bearing work. So I'm going to pause, and I'm going to do some gearbox cleaning, and then we're going to put it together when I come back. Okay, we're going to start the cleaning process of the old grease here. I'm going to recycle my old gas. And I don't want to bore you with 20-30 minutes of cleaning, so I'm going to pause the camera and we'll come back after I've degreased all that old petrified grease out of there. So that's how you recycle your old fuel. Okay, I'm back after a lot of cleaning, and I found some problems. The hole in this connecting rod plate this thing has been doing a hula hoop around the gear shaft, and the reason why is because the gear case is completely worn out. It's not supposed to move like that. Now, I've already looked up a new one, and even when you put the new one in here, this part of the casting is shot, and the bearings are only in mediocre to poor condition. So I'm gonna replace it. It's got 2 brand new bearings in it, and that will hold that connecting rod plate tightly, and that's going to address the bottom end. The top end, I'm going to use my gasket scraper and remove the gasket remnants. This bearing seems to be all right. This is a high temperature special bearing. You don't want to substitute on that. That bearing's good. I have put the connecting rods and the cam gear wheel into evaporust, and it is removing the rust. It's been sitting there for a few hours. I'm going to take it out and rinse it in hot water, and then we're going to start reassembling the gearbox. So we'll pause for a second and come back with some clean parts. Okay, I'm back after removing the cam gear wheel and connecting rods out of the evaporust. Rinsed them off, dried them off, and we're getting ready to put some parts back into the gearbox. But before I do, I want to show you a couple things. There is a Zerk fitting for a grease gun to introduce grease into the gear case right there. And there's also a through hole, and there was a short 5mm by 6mm screw, and Bert had removed that, and that goes into this hole, and I'm not really sure why it's there. Maybe it's to introduce grease into the very front of the gearbox. But that's back. And we are going to put one of these tubes of Red Armor gear lubricant onto his bill. Give him the remainder. Cut the end off. I'm going to pack this needle bearing, and I'm reusing one of the plates because it is still in good condition. It's not worn like the one that I was replacing on the lower part. However, this gearbox does have a lot of wear where these 2 lock tabs go, and this is free to move around excessively. So I'm going to try to tighten that up by bending the 2 tabs out. Hopefully they won't break off. Just bend those out a little bit. Okay, that's better. Okay, so I'm going to let that go. And I've got the needle bearings. Okay. And I like to put the flat side of the connecting rod. There's a rounded side and a flat side. I like to put the flat side towards the blade. Okay, now at this point, we can install the blade assembly. And I've got to make sure that the connecting rod, there it goes, it engaged the drive pin on the blade. This is where you use your second eye plate. And I don't think that's going to fall out of there now because the blade assembly is holding it in. It might, so I'm not going to go too far. I'm going to turn it completely upside down, just sideways. Okay. Put the other roller bearing on there. And put a little bit of grease on the drive pin of the blade, flat side towards the blade. And we're going to have to turn the cam wheel, or turn the blade, one or the other. Going to need a wrench to turn the cam wheel. There we go. Going to go the other way. Now we're getting close. Right there. Okay, so now I've got both connecting rods in, cam wheel in, and now it is time to scrape the gasket. There's still some gasket remnants. I am going to be using a new gasket. The old gasket is coming apart. I'm not going to use it. Okay, my camera battery died right when I was scraping gaskets, so I'm going to pause and resume here. Still got a little bit of gasket left. pretty good. Open up this new gear case cover. And I want to point out that this little icon referring to this hole is for turning the gear case from the exterior, whereas this one with the grease gun icon is strictly for lubricating the gears, which can also be done with this Zerk fitting. So if you have this style of grease, you don't need to purchase a grease gun. You can grease from here. The Zerk fitting, obviously you're going to need a grease gun and a tube of Red Armor grease. And I was earlier mentioned that the white grease that was inside here originally, that is Echo grease. They used to use a white lithium grease before they updated to this Red Armor. So that was the correct grease. He probably never added grease to it one single time. So I'm going to add the new plate in here, and I'm going to thoroughly grease this needle bearing. That is the one that fails the most. And then I'm going to really grease the heck out of this while it's open. And we're going to be using a new gasket. There we go. And we've got our 6 5mm by 16mm gear case screws, one of which I am going to use to turn the gearbox. Oh, made an error. I left out the felt seal. Okay, that felt seal's got to go in here. And that seals the grease from coming out the end of the gearbox. Okay, now the one of the screws I'm going to borrow, and with this cap removed, I can turn, at least I'm hoping this will work. Oh yeah, that works. You can see that our blades are moving. Okay, I was interrupted with a couple of phone calls and other delays, so I had to pause. Now I'm coming back, and I was putting the rubber caps back in the gearbox. But before I put the last one in there, I wanted to address one mistake I caught. Just about to overlook it. I'm going to flip this around. Okay, this bumper guard spacer at the very end of the bar, I had mentioned that there are two thicknesses of the shims and the bumper guard spacer, 4.7 millimeter and 5 millimeter. And for some reason, Echo and Shindaiwa, on the very last spacer with the bumper, they made it thinner than all the other spacers, and it does require a shim underneath the spring plate on top of that spacer. And I think I know where that one went. It ended up on the leaf sweep. So I'm going to have to take this back apart and put that missing shim back in the proper place that it's supposed to be. I think I can identify it because it's a slightly different size than the other washers. Take more off. Yeah, that's it right there. So this is a larger size than the washers. I still have the washers out here on the bench. Put the right one in there. So if I stack these together and set my caliper to metric and measure the two of them, I get 4.97 millimeters. And so that's why that washer's got to go in there underneath this spring. All right. Yeah, we're going to bring the camera in a little closer. And turn the blades. Still got my screw in the gearbox there, so I can turn. And the benefit of removing the blades is that you can remove the pitch not only off the back of the tooth, but you can remove the pitch that's in between the blades. And it also gives you, a chance to service the gearbox properly. And you have to remember that there are basically 23 little pairs of scissors here. And before I did this video, I checked out some of the other YouTube videos on hedge trimmer blade sharpening, and I saw some errors that I want to point out. I saw a number of people that were grinding the back side of the blade. They were grinding this face with their angle grinder to take the burr off, and that is a big no-no. The scissors are only supposed to be sharpened on this face and this face, never on the back side of the blade. If you do grind this, the cutting edges will not mate when the scissors are closing, and it won't cut. And the same thing is true on a hedge trimmer. And when you have the blades off, that gives you the opportunity to use a very large flat stone with a flat side on it, and you can see that very minimal was actually honed off, just a couple minutes, and only the high spots are taken down, the burrs and the high spots. And I've not gone through the nickel plating, or in the case of like a little Wonder Blade, the Teflon coating that's on their blades, and so on. And that's what you get with a professional job. You get a chance to service the gearbox and properly sharpen the blades, removing the pitch, and you'll get the best results. Now, let's see, I'm going to make a demonstration here. My gun. Now you can see that, if this is sharp, that's going to cut. That's going to cut. And that's what you're looking for. Now, that that's done, I'm going to remove this and put it back where it goes. And we're going to put the rubber cap back in. There we go. That's back in. And there's a couple other things that I'm going to address. One of the 4mm screws and nut is missing out of the handle, and the handle is doing a hula hoop around the bar there. So I'm going to be putting that screw in there and then tightening these other two to put that back tight. And I'm going to probably, check the air filter and the fuel filter. This unit came in and there was no complaint about it not starting and running, but I'm going to check those things and test run it. It really came in because he took it apart and he was unable to get it back together. And obviously he's gone to some of the tailgate shade tree mechanics prior because of the grinding marks that are in his lower blade spring. And in our area, we have these guys. And whenever you ask the customer, well, where did you take this before? And they'll say, oh, I took it to the guy. And the guy did it. And then I ask them, well, who is the guy? And they'll say, oh, it's that guy. I said, well, who is that guy? What is that guy's name? Oh, those guys. And well, who are those guys? What's the name? Where are they? Oh, it's his name is Thegui. And that's all I can get out of him. It's the guy. The guy did it. So there is a difference between what the guy does, that guy, those guys, these guys, and a professional shop. And a do-it-yourselfer is not going to be able to produce these kind of results. You're going to have to access this plug, turn the gears so that the teeth line up into the right position so that you can get a file, a Dremel tool, or an angle grinder in here, and you're going to have to, grind the blades in place. And you're going to have to inject grease through this rubber plug, and you don't need a grease gun to go through there. Or if you do have a grease gun, you can go into this Zerk fitting. The grease will get into the connecting rods and the cam gear wheel. And so the job is like 99% done. I'm just going to, clean up a few little details. And so that's the way you want to do a professional, top-tier job. And we charge a lot for this. This is going to be about $350 for all this work. But that's the difference. This is going to last the longest before it needs any further service on the blades or the gear case. This is going to go for a long service interval before it's got to come back in again. And I think, Bert, he tried to go cheap and he just wasn't able to do it. So I think that's going to be a wrap for this episode. If you want to learn from the channel, click the like button, subscribe. Don't end up being a Gomer, a Sniffles, a Dingus, or a Scratch, or an Einstein, if you want to do top tier work. So I don't know what the next one's going to be. We'll just have to wait and see. It's signing off, the Unknown Mechanic.